Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jensen, and we're getting back into Module 1, Part 4, Personality Types, but I'm breaking this down into further segments so that we can better digest this in a way that's not going to keep us from choking down food that we haven't chewed up yet. So I'm going to go back to full screen, and this maybe is a little hint as to what my personality type is before we talk about extroversion versus introversion. I'm an extrovert. That actually bodes fairly well for my profession, although it's not an end-all be-all. In fact, many successful faculty members are introverted because doing research independently by yourself is a natural inclination for someone who's introverted. So if I've learned anything, I've learned that personality types can function in a lot of different jobs and different contexts, but some abilities and preferences will kind of just make you more effective at certain tasks and make certain tasks easier to do and ones that you enjoy. So one thing I enjoy is getting to do videos with you guys. So this is more of my world that I like to be in, and it lets me feel connected to you. So again, these are kind of my own little habits and my own preferences that illustrate more of who I am. And I embrace who I am, with its flaws and weaknesses, or however it goes. But before I get too carried away, I'm going to minimize myself in the screen, and let's get back to the lecture. So extrovert versus introvert. Before I fully jump in, I'm going to bring up that document one more time from last lecture, introvert or extrovert. So again, this document is on the course module so that this can be further used to identify and verify who you are. So one thing that I suggest students can do is you can kind of use the highlight tool to basically map yourself on one side or another. So if you say, yep, that sounds like me, I'm going to go ahead and highlight that side. Well, actually, this is kind of more like me, so I'll highlight that side. Or you can use check marks or whatever you want to do. Okay, either way will work. But essentially, this is the list from your textbook, and we'll just go through it briefly so that you can kind of be thinking through it a little bit as you go, as you're further identifying which side of this personality dimension you end up on. So without further ado, we have to start on the extrovert side, because everyone that's an extrovert that's listening will be really irritated if they don't get the attention first. So we will play to that dimension and start on the left. And maybe the introverts are collectively sighing relief saying, good, because I don't want to be in the middle of this. So on the extrovert side, they are energized by being with other people. They like being the center of attention. They act and then they think. And sometimes they put their foot in their mouth. It's kind of funny. They tend to think out loud. They kind of plan as they talk and get a sense of how they want to do things. Kind of leaping before they look. An extrovert might say, I'm easier to read and know, and I share personal information freely. I talk more than listen. I communicate with enthusiasm. I respond quickly, and I enjoy a fast pace, and I prefer breadth to depth. I'd rather know a lot about a little than go way deep into something, because that might be a little more draining for me to invest into. But I can handle a lot about a little. I can handle a little about a lot, kind of breadth over depth. And again, introvert is going to be the exact opposite. So I will get out of the way and go over to the introvert side. So again, opposite of the extrovert. They're energized by spending time alone. This is where they get their calm and their peace and their solace, because this is where they do their best thinking. And that's where they feel their contribution to the world comes from. They avoid being the center of attention because it takes away from their private time, from the quiet and calm that they desire. They think and then they act, so they're very methodical and deliberate about what they do because they've thought it through very thoroughly. So they look before they leap, and they often say the right thing. Okay, it doesn't mean they're free from mistakes or offending, but they don't do it as often as an extrovert would. They think things through inside their head. Again, being very calculated and cautious. They're more of a private person, preferring to share personal information with a select few. It's not to say that they don't trust people or they are guarded. It's more of how much they share as a means of kind of how it taps into their energy and the energy required to maintain those confidences and those relationships. They listen more than they talk. They're excellent listeners. So often you'll find extroverted people connecting with introverted people because they balance each other out a lot better. You have a talker, you have a listener. You'll find it in romantic relationships too, or sometimes boss-subordinate relationships or partnerships in business. And occasionally you'll find it in parenthood or friendship as well. Introverts also keep their enthusiasm to themselves, but I don't want to act like I'm selling them out as though they are not enthusiastic. They are, but again, it comes down to preference, energy, and so forth, kind of where they see themselves contributing. Their contribution is their thinking and their observation and the calm and the decision making that comes from them taking in the world first. They respond after taking the time to think things through, and they enjoy a slower pace. They don't want to be overwhelmed by constant activity and noise because that's very draining for them. And they prefer depth to breadth. They're someone that can just soak hours and hours into a project and not miss a beat. In fact, that helps them feel accomplished and gives them a sense of self and a sense of energy. That's a big part of who they are. So again, these two balance each other out really well, and both are needed in society in so many different ways. But again, let's go back to the slides. So right here, I'm going to float on over to these little bars. This extrovert versus introverts originated from Carl Jung. It came from a few other people too, but we kind of credit Carl Jung. How we prefer to interact with the world and where we direct our energy. So again, it's not to say that you can't have behaviors that look more extroverted or introverted at times. It's just more of your preferred space, your default, and how you get your energy. So you're going to be more on one side or another. Extroverts prefer the outer world, while introverts prefer the inner world. Although by necessity, we both really operate in those spaces in different circumstances, right? We operate within both by necessity. Sometimes we have to be a little more out there because of what's required of us, and other times we need to kind of pack it in a little bit. Functioning in our preferred world actually energizes us, while the opposite world tends to drain us, which is why we have preferences of where we like to be. So keep in mind there's far more to extroversion versus introversion than just the common idea of talkativeness or how social you are. That's the last thing I want you to walk away from this lecture from or with is just being talkative or not talkative, because nothing could be further from the truth. That's very inaccurate. So make sure you drop that stereotype if that's floating in your brain somewhere. Let's start with extroverts, just a little more detail again. They seek out other people. They enjoy lots of interaction, one-on-one or within a group. They are naturally or constantly pulled to the outer world, and they need to experience the world to understand it, because that's how they feel they can make sense of things. They enjoy a lot of activity, they're energized by others, and they tend to know lots of people. They're very approachable, they enjoy attention, and they meet people often and with ease, and they perceive situations thinking, how do I affect this? Again, that's a very external orientation to have. And now I will turn to introverts, and maybe even turn off my camera for this one. I know it seems like I'm kind of being weirdly symbolic. So introverts enjoy alone time and privacy. They enjoy smaller scale interaction. They're naturally constantly pulled to the world within themselves. They need to understand the world before they experience it. That's a much more calm, peaceful, and safer place for them to be. They also enjoy mental activity. They're particularly good at puzzles. They're energized by self-time, and they tend to know fewer people, although those relationships can be very deep and profound, very powerful relationships. They're reserved. They tend to avoid attention, and they're cautious with new people. They prefer gradual relationships to emerge, perceiving situations thinking, how does this affect me? So again, if it's hard to decide between these two preferences, because even of things like how we change with age, or the demands of your work, maybe you have to function in a certain way because it's required of you, or because of the people around you, it tends to work better. Again, ask yourself, if you're still undecided, if I had to be one way or the other for the rest of my life, which one would I choose and why? So again, it's not one versus the other, or bad or good. It's just you're one way or another. And again, being flexible, being willing to be introverted or extroverted given the necessity. So don't forget Carl Jung's admonishment saying we really operate within both, but one is preferred. So that is a little bit about extroversion and introversion. Hopefully this helps you get closer to identifying who you are. And we'll see you in the next lecture.